Hey everybody, welcome to another Facebook Live presentation. My name is Tim O'Brien, and my business, The Person to See, focuses on working with professionals just like you and me, teaching us how to identify our personal brand and market our brand until we become the person to see with our target audience. Now, I have to tell you, it all sounds well and good, right? But in actuality, positioning yourself as the person to see is challenging. And not just from a perspective of do you have the skills, the knowledge, and the resources, but also from the perspective of do you have the courage, do you have the guts to take the risks you need to take in order to produce the results you want. You know, when clients come to me frequently, it's not an issue of do they have what it takes in terms of a product or service or a desire to be successful. But oftentimes what happens is that their fears get in the way. And those fears can sometimes trap you in one of two ways. One is they can stop you in your tracks and you don't even get out of the starting blocks. Or two is through sheer willpower, you achieve a certain level of success, but nothing close to what your true potential is. And so in today's presentation, I want to talk to you about a movie that changed my life, completely changed my life. And every time I begin to pull back from going for it, I think about this movie. And I think about a particular scene in the movie that resonated with me right to my core. Now, the movie I'm talking about is Rudy. To give you a little background, Rudy is a biographical movie that was produced by Hollywood maybe a decade almost or 2 decades ago. And it focuses on the journey, the personal journey of Rudy Rudiger in his desire to go from a small mill town in Illinois to play for the Notre Dame football powerhouse known as the Fighting Irish. Now, it's a true story. And here's a little bit of the background of Rudy and why it was so improbable what he accomplished. Rudy was small. He was about 5'7", maybe 150 pounds soaking wet. Now you're talking about the premier college football program in the country. They probably didn't have a 5'7" player on their team outside of their kicker, okay? Let alone a skill position player. So Rudy was part of a family that worshiped Notre Dame, and every Saturday they would watch Notre Dame play on their black and white TV. He played high school football, and he always had a passion and a desire to go to Notre Dame. It was kind of incongruent with reality. You know, the expectations that Rudy had the grades or the talent to get to Notre Dame were outsized in his mind, but it didn't matter. That's what he wanted. So upon graduation from high school, he didn't go off to Notre Dame. He didn't even go to college. He did what everybody else in the family did. He went to work in the steel mill with his dad and his brothers. Now, Rudy, even though he was working in the steel mill, was convinced and was determined to get to Notre Dame. To him, it was just a temporary stop. So in the movie, he also worked in the steel mill with his best friend. And during the course of one of the days, one of the days shift, there was an emergency and there was an explosion that occurred, and his best friend was killed. And that was the moment that changed Rudy's life. Up until that point in time, Rudy was dating a particular gal, and they were going to get married, and they were looking at homes together. And even though that was her plan, his high school sweetheart, they were going to get married, in the back of his mind, he knew that I've got to go to Notre Dame. And the moment his friend was killed in that explosion, it all changed. So he decided, he told his girlfriend, I have to go. And she said to him, I understand, but I'm not waiting for you. So here's the scene that changed it all for me. In the movie, Sean Astin plays Rudy Rudiger. His father's played by Ned Beatty. So he grew up in a blue collar family. You know, he didn't have a fancy car. He didn't have a ton of clothes. You know, didn't live in a big home. So he packed everything he had and he put it in a duffel bag. And the scene cuts to where Rudy's sitting at the bus station, waiting for the bus at night. It's chilly. It's a fall season. And he's sitting there waiting for the bus. And in saunters his father, again, played by Ned Beatty. And he sits down next to Rudy. And he starts to talk with him, and he tries to empathize with him. He understands what Rudy's going through. And he says to him, son, I understand your friend was killed and take as much time off as you need. And Rudy said, no, Dad, I'm going to Notre Dame. And he said, Rudy, he said, your brother is going to be the plant foreman in a few years, and they're going to open up another plant, and your other brother will be a foreman, and pretty soon you'll be able to work, under one of them, and eventually you'll take over a plant. And really painting a life that was the identical to Ned Beatty's life, a great middle-class life in the outskirts of Chicago, Illinois. But Rudy was determined. He said, no, Dad, I don't want to do that. I've got to go to Notre Dame. So then his dad reverted to telling a story about his childhood and his dad. His dad was a middle class, I wouldn't say businessman, but Ned Beatty's dad was had a good job in the city. And his brothers, Ned Beatty and his brothers, convinced his dad to buy some land and buy some cattle and raise cattle because they could make a lot of money doing this. So his father listened to the kids, and they all enthusiastically went all in on buying this farm and buying this cattle. Well, as fate would have it, all the cattle died. Rudy's father told him his father then left the family. And he said to him, he said, son, look, he said, you got to stay with what you know. And we know the steel mills, and it's the safe bet. You got to stay there. And Rudy appreciated what his father was saying to him, but he said, Dad, I can't. I just can't do it. And then his dad uttered these words, and I'll never forget it. He got so fed up and frustrated with Rudy, he said, God darn it, Rudy. Notre Dame is not for Rutgers. It's for other people. And the implication was Rutgers were not good enough to go to Notre Dame. Even when I think about it, it chokes me up. His father loved his son so much he wanted to protect him, and the best way he could protect him was to keep him inside that comfort zone. And the way he drove that point home was basically saying, son, we are not of that level. We are at that lower level. And I thought to myself when I heard that, in my life, I was always wanting more, but there was a part of me that was afraid to take that chance. Who was I to want to do what I envisioned in my mind? Who was I to realize the dreams I had, because they were completely different than the dreams I grew up with? And don't get me wrong, I had a wonderful childhood and great parents, but I had super ambitions. I wanted to go places. I wanted to see things. I wanted to experience things. I didn't want to just have a job. I wanted to have something that I loved. And in that moment, I said to myself, that movie, that scene spoke to me. And I said to myself, I am going to do what my heart desires, what my brain knows I can do, and I'm going to go for it. And every time I begin to doubt myself, I think back to that scene, and I think to the power of what it had on me. And just so you know, I watched that movie in Arizona in the middle of the day, and I was the only person in the theater. I just remember it so vividly. So my message to you is this: don't let other people decide what you should do. You decide for yourself. If you're thinking it in your mind and you have the passion in your heart, you got to go for it, even if you fail. And by the way, Rudy didn't go to Notre Dame and enroll right away. As a matter of fact, he got there and they laughed at him. But there was a priest who befriended him and got him enrolled in a local community college. And he applied 3 times after 3 separate semesters to get into Notre Dame. 3 times, and 3 times he was rejected. On the 4th time, he was accepted. Rudy went on to play as a walk-on at Notre Dame, and his goal was to play in 1 play. 1 play. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'm not going to spoil what happened or how it happened. I invite you to watch the movie. And when you do, bring tissues, because it's one of the best. One of the best. Okay? So if you found this video useful, guys, I just want to invite you to go to my website. I want you to check out all the resources we have there. If you want to build a great personal brand, I want to invite you to download my free ebook, the 5 steps to selecting the right personal brand for you, okay, all you need to do is go to thepersontoSee.com/5 steps. ThepersontoSee.com/5 steps. All right? So best of luck to you. Stay in the game, and you decide what's best for you.